Welcome to GV247.tv, the Global Vision Channel, a non-profit web TV channel bringing biblical perspective to the world in which you live.
Hello and welcome to GV247. It's lovely to see you all again, and we'd just like to thank you, as we've been doing the last 4 weeks, for your emails and letters of encouragement. It's lovely to hear from you, so please visit the website, again, come back and hit the subscribe button, and you too could be a part of what's happening here. Now, many of you will probably know us best as a film production company for this film called The Daniel Project, which is about Bible prophecy. Stewart, I think you're going to have a little surprise for the viewers, though.
Well, we had to put together a trailer before the actual production was made so that you could be able to find a distributor at Cannes in France. And so here's a very early trailer that was put together back in 2004.
During the course of 1 week, the situation in the Middle East has deteriorated dramatically.
It's beyond our understanding. Centered around the city of Jerusalem, events touching the lives of every living creature on earth. The message is a warning.
Well, that was a very dramatic trailer, and it really does bring back memories of how this all began way back in 1990 with our first biblical documentary called Cup of Trembling, Countdown to Armageddon.
And before we show you a clip, it was transferred eventually to DVD, although it's only in a standard definition format. But you might like to know that originally, here's the original video format. And if you want to hold that, Deb, I'm going to compare it with the masters that we used to have to work with back in those days. And here it is. And so that was a kind of technology way back in 1990. But here we have a clip for you, and we wonder if you can recognise two particular people in this clip.
Two young things.
After much research into the subject, a Scottish documentary team set out to see if these end-time prophecies could actually come to pass. Keeping to a literal interpretation of the Bible, their investigation has led to an astonishing parallel between today's world events and the signs of the end of the age.
Before we could even begin to look at what the Bible had to say concerning the end-time prophecies, we had to ask ourselves the question, is what we're reading accurate? Are the documents valid? Or are they just a collection of myths and philosophies?
In the law, there's a rule that witnesses and the accused are innocent until proven guilty. We all know that. Same is true of documents. Documents are innocent until proven guilty. Ancient documents are admitted into evidence if they are fair on their face, if they appear to be valid, and there is no good reason to regard them otherwise, and if they are in a place of natural provenance. In the case of the New Testament documents, those criteria are definitely fulfilled.
We have found that many people still criticise these scriptures, in particular the New Testament documents, claiming that they were written well after the events occurred or were even doctored along the way.
The late Sir Frederick Kenyon, a former director of the British Museum, said that the New Testament documents are the best attested documents of the classical world.
Yet again, despite this kind of evidence, we find that the media is often used to promote allegations which cast doubts on the biblical account and even on Jesus Christ himself. So what are the facts?
There are 22 historians of Christ's time who mention various aspects concerning Jesus. And what is more, most of them are antagonistic.
Since the beginning, man has sought to know his destiny, listening to the seers expound mysteries of the future. However, it is claimed that no other collection of writings has come close to matching the Bible for its accuracy with prophecy, with its attention to even the smallest details.
Investigations show that these ancient prophecies, written over a period of 1500 years, supply pieces of what we could call a jigsaw. However, their fulfillment appears to depend on two major factors: the development of advanced technology and the rise of Israel as a nation, with the city of Jerusalem at its center.
The Bible is about 30% prophecy. That's unique. You will find no prophecy in the Quran, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Ramayana, the Hindu Vedas, the writings of Mary Baker Eddy, the Book of Mormon. Nowhere but in this book. In Scripture, there are two main topics of prophecy: Israel and the Messiah, who comes to Israel and through Israel to the world. And through these, God absolutely proves his existence. And just very briefly, let me just run down a little outline here. In Isaiah 43:10, God says to Israel, "You are my witnesses to yourselves and to the world that I am God." Now, what does he mean by that? 30% of the Israelis claim to be atheists. The Jews are not running around testifying to the existence of God. What he's saying is, you are my witnesses to the world because of what I said would happen to you and that I have brought it to pass. Now, I would suggest that nobody can be an atheist. I mean, I majored in math as pre-law in university many years ago. I know something about the laws of probability, and I can tell you these things that we have stated from the Bible, prophesied centuries before in black and white. This is not some obscure Nostradamus or some psychic, but these are world-shaking events that are witnessed by the entire world, that were down in black and white centuries before they happened. And you can't be an atheist. It couldn't possibly happen by chance. Now, when you come to the prophecies of the Messiah, that's even more remarkable.
In coming even more to the present day, the prophets foretold that the truth of God's word would be forsaken and it would be replaced by the laws and philosophies of men. Many reports today claim that the teaching of evolution and humanism have been the vehicle for the moral breakdown in our society, and it's come in via the classroom.
So did you recognise these two youngsters? I'd like to think that we aged well.
So, how did it all start?
You know, people are really entranced by this story because when God does something, he does it well. Some of you will know my background in testimony. When I was a little girl, I was actually involved in the acting profession with 20th Century Fox. I was in a film called The Prime Miss Jean Brodie, and then I realised that actually being in front of the camera was much harder work. When I got saved, I got rid of absolutely everything, any equipment, video equipment. I turned my back on all of that. And one day, I was just an ordinary housewife washing the dishes, and I actually heard a voice, and it said, "I want you to make a film." And I'd only been a Christian a few short years, and I really thought I was imagining it, and I had to hear that 3 times, and I knew it was God. So it's the oddest thing, and I said, "Lord, if that's you, you're going to have to do it all, because we have no money," and I mean no money. We were living in a tiny, tiny little house. I have no equipment, and I've got a husband, and I don't even know that he's going to be on board. But when I went and told Stewart what I believed the Lord was saying to me, he caught the vision immediately, and he said, "I know what it's to be about as well." And then began the most amazing adventure, which even incorporated us getting in the car, driving out into the countryside, meeting an old lady who said she had been waiting many, many years for me to come because the Lord had told her, and this would have been maybe 50 years ago, the Lord spoke to her, 50 from now, to say that a woman would come and that she was to help in whichever way to help get the word of Bible prophecy out to the world. and she wrote us a blank cheque. It's absolutely extraordinary. And just one wee thing, when we made this new film called Cup of Trembling Countdown to Armageddon, it was so dedicated to God, we didn't even have our names on it, did we, Stewart? What was your part in this then? Once you caught the vision, you knew that the Lord was telling us to do this. What was God doing in your life at that time?
For me, it was all about, well, what's the story? And once we began doing the research and looking into how to create the storyline, we began to realize that we didn't know enough about doctrine. We didn't know enough about theology. And so for 2 years, I took time out of my own work as a professional advertising photographer. I took time out from the studio, and Deborah lost me to the Bible for 2 years. And back in those days, there was no computers, or no computers to speak of. There were no mobile phones, unless you're talking about the ones that have got batteries this size, and the telephones are like walkie-talkies. Getting information wasn't that easy. Even the libraries that were around us didn't really have, they didn't stock the kind of information, the kind of books to do really in-depth study into this particular subject. And so therefore it demanded a great deal of time, effort and energy. And at one point in our studio at that time, the floor would be covered in archaeological books, historical books, the different types of books on the early church fathers, trying to find out letters that the Romans used to write at the time round about Christ and the disciples, and on it went. And it was a massive amount of research. And it was during that research that we were able to finally create the storyline. Who do we need to talk to? What are the questions we need to ask?
You know, this is just, it was an amazing project. So I was given the blank cheque. I went to buy a camera and all the equipment we needed. And then I got a phone call from the same elderly lady, and she said she knew of a church conference that was happening up in Dundee, and they needed somebody to film it. Now, I had worked in video for quite a while before that, before I was saved. So here was a chance to go back up and get my hand in again. So I went up to film this conference, and there was a lady there she was an elderly lady who had been a missionary, and she prophesied over me that God would take me all over the world with this camera. And I couldn't see how it could possibly happen, because my husband was the photographer. He was the expert in film and lighting and so on. But this lady invited me over to Texas to film her international convention. And I remember praying, saying, Lord, how am I going to do this? Stewart will never let me do it. And so clearly it's like the Lord said, yes, you tell your husband, and he will make the decision. And I did. And of course, Stewart said he knew he was to come, and that was it. That was how it all began, wasn't it? You see, we'd written this list, as Stewart said, with a list of people we needed to interview. But because we lived in a university town, we didn't want to do it off our own back. We wanted God to do everything for us, so we knew it was him. And the first person on our list was an archaeologist. The second person was a historian. And the third, I think, was a mathematician, because we were looking at the mathematics in the Bible. And so we had this list. We went to Texas, and lo and behold, one of the first people we met, it's a long story, was an amateur archaeologist, and the adventure began.
Yeah. So the kind of people that we're going to be showing you over the coming, actually 3 programs, these are the kind of people that we were interviewing. Professor John Warwick Montgomery, cited as the greatest apologist of the Christian faith at that time.
Then we had the Lord brought along the historian Dr Alan Roberts, and he was captured by rebels in Turkey searching for Noah's Ark.
We had the late Dr Victor Pearce, who had a fistful of doctorates and shared so many wonderful accounts of ancient history with us.
We met up with the controversial amateur archaeologist, the late Ron Wyatt, who claimed to have found a number of major biblical finds, including the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, it was a case of Indiana Jones eat your heart out.
Did you know that there are mathematical equations in the Bible? The late Sir John Beecham and author and lecturer Chuck Missler divulge mysteries from within the biblical texts.
In regard to creation and evolution, in episode 2 weeks ago, you'll have seen our interview with Ken Ham. Well, here was the first time we met him, along with the straight-talking Roger Oakland of Understand the Times Ministries.
In regard to a third temple in Jerusalem, the doors opened to interview the head of the Temple Institute, Rabbi Chaim Richman.
Then we had the founder of Operation Exodus, a lovely gentleman, Gustav Scheller, and he shared wonderful video footage and accounts of Russian Jews returning to Israel, which was quite remarkable in the light of the ancient prophecies.
We had the late evangelist Barry Smith. We have fond memories of this gifted speaker seen here being filmed for a secular TV station in the UK.
Then we had our token minister. We needed a man of God to show. And we had the very well-known Dr Clifford Hill, probably best known in regard to the magazine Prophecy Today in the UK. And he gave insight into the church in the last days. On a side note, there is a remarkable testimony in regard to why this minister was filmed the way he was.
And that really is quite a story not to be missed. But in regard to the music, Deborah?
We prayed very much about what background music to use, and the Lord very clearly brought to us the music of the wonderful, the gifted Jewish Messianic believer Helen Shapiro. So listen for a moment to a track. It was written by Bruce Cohen, and it's on the CD called The Pearl, produced by Mana Music, I think it is. Helen Shapiro.
Hear my cry, give heed to my prayer, O Lord in heaven, for I call upon your name. And when I'm dry, come fill me with the waters of Yeshua, for I only trust in his name. Lift a hold, create, oh Lord, a heart for me. Renew, oh God, your spirit in me. Tishlacheni mir banecha, ruach nachon, chadesh b'kirbi. Draw near, oh God, I only rejoice in your nearness. Renew, oh God,
I just love that track. It's a beautiful track. There's actually another track on Cup of Trembling as well called Jerusalem, but Lev Tahor is a beautiful track.
So the first part of the film Cup of Trembling, Countdown to Armageddon was to do with the veracity of the scriptures. How do you prove, if possible, that God is God and that the Bible is his word? So we interviewed Professor John Warwick Montgomery, and he is quite a guy. In fact, you can see him at the end of the weekend show, I think, episode 1. Mm-hmm. And he was a lawyer, an amazing person. He gave us lots of the legal evidence for Jesus Christ and the manuscripts. And then I think on the film we're going to see Dr. Victor Pierce. Now, he was quite a chap. He was an archaeologist amongst many other things. Stuart, you remember some of the times we had?
I think at that point in time, I think he was about 84 years old.
The prophet Zechariah said, "When the Lord comes to the Mount of Olives east of Jerusalem, the mountain will split in two." The prophet Ezekiel foretells that at that time, fresh water will pour out from under a temple in Jerusalem and flow down to the Dead Sea. With the rebuilding of a temple in sight and geological research showing a fault line at the Mount of Olives, could these events now be possible?
It's not only possible, but it's actually recorded by the hydrological map, government map, which was given to me. It shows there is water under Jerusalem, deep down in artesian basin, and plenty of it, enough water there for 3.5 years, drinking water, without a drop of rain falling. And so the Bible is quite right in saying that when the Mount of Olives splits through, that'll open up into this artesian well. And this actually, this report says that if ever that split there will be copious water coming out and flowing down through Kidron down into the Dead Sea.
It was such a blessing to be able to be with somebody with that kind of academic prowess, to be able to bring out archaeological finds that just were not being covered on television.
But then, of course, we had the controversial amateur archaeologist Ron Wyatt, who made a lot of claims.
And we interviewed Ron Wyatt at the airport in Texas, and that was quite a struggle with planes going overhead. But here's a clip of some of the claims that he made.
Over recent years, amateur archaeologist Ron Wyatt has made astonishing claims of discovery, including that of Noah's Ark.
We have found the remains of Noah's Ark. We found the Red Sea crossing site. We have found the remains of Sodom and Gomorrah. We have found the real Mount Sinai out in Saudi Arabia with thousands of artifacts proving that that is the site. We have found chariot parts of the 18th Egyptian dynasty in the Red Sea, human remains, horse remains, chariot remains.
Wyatt claims these artifacts to be deck timbers, rivets and giant anchor stones recovered from this site 6,300 feet above sea level in eastern Turkey, which he believes to be the remains of the Ark of Noah. In 1987, promotional materials announced that the Turkish archaeological authorities supported Wyatt's findings, and consequently a visitor centre was opened in May of 1989. Seen here is a model of what he believes the Ark may have looked like, based on their technical surveys. However, controversy surrounds the claims made, as a number of experts who have worked at this site refute Ron Wyatt's findings. At present, the Turkish authorities are carrying out their own research. Another Bible report often thought of as a myth is the account of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities that God destroyed by fire and sulfur because of their sin. Wyatt claims that here, at the foot of Masada by the Dead Sea, the remains of Gomorrah have been preserved as a reminder to the world of God's judgment. He claims that these unusual-looking formations are what is left of ancient buildings, ziggurat towers, and sphinx-type statues, all of which have been reduced to the consistency of talcum powder. There is also an abundance of large and small ball formations, which were tested at Galbraith Labs back in the United States. The tests revealed that the yellow balls in the centre were 95.72% sulfur and that the outer coating was ash. Could this be the sulfur that God rained from heaven? It is the view of others, however, that these formations are nothing more than the result of a geological upheaval. Another well-known biblical account is when the Israelites crossed the Red Sea after escaping from Egyptian slavery. The miracle of the crossing wasn't just that the waters parted to let all the Israelites through, but that they closed again over the pursuing Egyptian army. Wyatt claims to have found artifacts from this period at the bottom of the Gulf of Aqaba, and he believes that this gold chariot wheel was from Pharaoh's own chariot. It was after studying bathymetric maps from the British Admiralty that he noticed an underwater land bridge stretching the width of the Gulf with a maximum depth of 900 feet. Along with his team, they claim to have found a number of chariot wheels, axles, and human remains. He presented one such find, a chariot hub, to the Director of Antiquities in Cairo, Egypt. Ron Wyatt claims that the location of the crossing site would naturally lead on to the true location of Mount Sinai, where Moses received the Ten Commandments. According to the Bible, Almighty God descended onto the mount in fire, and this peak is certainly blackened. Further excavations have revealed remains of an ancient Israeli encampment and an altar to a golden calf, all of which fit the biblical narrative. Whilst working on this site in 1984, Wyatt and his two sons were imprisoned for 75 days by Saudi authorities on a charge of being Israeli spies. After their release, Ron returned to the site in 1985 with an archaeologist from the Riyadh University. However, it is now protected by royal decree and enclosed with cyclone fencing. there is no official verification of these findings.
Ron was a lovely man. He was a very kind man. He was very generous with his time with us. He's certainly a very controversial figure, but the next time we were to meet with him was to be in Jerusalem, and he made some astonishing claims there too. It was very exciting, I have to say.
And the next clip that's coming up here, well, it's quite a claim. See what you think of this.
Yet there is one major article missing, one that has been the subject of many films and books, the Ark of the Covenant, which holds the tablets of stone with the 10 Commandments. Though there have been many claims which have led nowhere, in 1982 Ron Wyatt and his team boldly proclaimed,
The Ark of the Covenant, we have found that. That is such a awesome object that its potential for causing a bloodbath in the Middle East is very real. And so that is being handled in a manner so that a bloodbath will be avoided. Nobody wants to get a bunch of people killed, showing them that the Solomon's Temple and the furnishings that Moses had built out at Mount Sinai is real.
Well, what can you say?
Next week, we're actually going to go to Jerusalem with Ron to look at the site of the Ark of the Covenant.
And we speak to the head of the Temple Institute, Rabbi Chaim Richmond, in regard to their view about whether the Ark has been found or not.
It really is something very special. So we hope you tune in then for next week's weekend show. Until then, please do drop us a line. You can email or subscribe, and we look forward to you joining with us next week.
And remember, if archaeology or ancient history or Bible texts interest you, you can go to GV247's very large channel library, and you can find many dozens and dozens of films, short films by various academics on these subjects if you want to know more about that. And also, remember, we have GV247 cards here, and if you would like these, if you'd like to get maybe a box of these, why not write into us?
Okay. You know something? Stewart keeps talking about all the academics on GV247. I promise you, that is not dry and boring. There's a lot of fun to be had as you can learn along with us, because we have over 600 little films now to watch. So be blessed and join us next week for the weekend show.
God bless.
Thank you.
This is GV247.tv, a non-profit web TV channel bringing biblical perspective to the world in which you live. A powerful free resource with hundreds of short films on a wide range of Bible topics from experts around the world, plus full-length sermons and programs for teaching and encouragement. Choose from current affairs, signs of the times, a chance to voice your own opinion, and special offers on our full-length feature films, documentaries, and study materials. At over 4 hours in length, the Lamplight Project is a systematic 12-part Bible study series, a powerful teaching tool that begins with the origins of life and takes the viewer on a comprehensive journey packed with high-profile interviews, film, graphics, and illustrations, concluding with the return of Christ and an encouragement to stand firm and be faithful. Complete with a free study guide download for both personal and group study, this powerful interactive guide connects to over 1,000 programs with expert interviews on GV247.tv, our free service web TV channel. Does My Life Have Meaning? A powerful 1-hour presentation produced from the Lamplight Project. With a free copy of the Gospel of Luke, this film is crammed with engaging interviews, film and graphics. A life-challenging film to those searching for answers. As distributors for the Jesus film, we offer this timeless movie based on Luke's Gospel. This clear presentation of the life of Jesus Christ has been viewed worldwide and translated into over 1,200 languages. We provide the film with a free copy of the Gospel of Luke. The Daniel Project is a popular TV documentary that presents an overview of Bible prophecy and an encouragement to read the signs of the times. Hailed as one of the best TV films to be made on the subject, DVD extras feature a heart-to-heart interview about the way of rescue. We've been serving the body of Christ for over 30 years, and if you would like further information, please do not hesitate to get in touch.